and bring in the blockbuster. The Giants trading the number 11 pick to the Chicago Bears, who saw Justin Fields slip outside the top 10.
Look at that smile.
This is what Bears fans wanted. I mean,
that smile.
Happy man.
As long as it wasn't to trade up and get McCorkle Jones, there he is. Justin Fields has been drafted by the Chicago Bears. When you factor in what they gave up, I know they gave up a lot to get Mitch Trubisky back in the day. Didn't work out. This gives me hope, if nothing else.
It's being aggressive to address the position of need. Now, obviously, they bring in Andy Dalton, but this is the future. This is the guy that you hope can be, finally, the franchise quarterback that you've been desperate for forever. And so I love it. I like that the Bears are being aggressive. I like that Ryan Pace is being aggressive. This saves his job, maybe for another year, potentially two. Saves Matt Nagy's job as well. So we'll see when he starts, Pete, because it's probably going to be Andy Dalton's job from week one. But this is a good move by the Bears. They gave up a lot to go get him, but you had to be aggressive when you started to see him fall.
Don't forget about Sid Luckman way back in the day. They actually had
That's how long it's been.
That's true. It's actually true.
I mean, you can say Jim McMahon won a Super Bowl.
Yeah, but he was never real. He was good. He was never great. They have a chance to have a great one here. I love this move. And if you're Ryan Pace and Matt Nagy, you don't care about next year's first-round pick. If you don't win this year, you're out anyway.
Sign off on it, though, still. You got to be excited as – I mean, look at this guy. Look at how happy he is.
No, it's a great move. I think he's the second-best quarterback in the draft, and you made a bold move to go up and get him. I give it an A grade. I love what the Bears did. But, again, you're giving up a lot. You're giving up – and they've done that before, and it didn't work out. Mitch Trubisky. And so there's always that risk. But these guys don't care. They're not going to be there if it doesn't work out. So give away the future picks.
And history in this trade. Dave Gettleman, first time trading.
Oh, correct.
Draft pick.
Yeah.
How about that?
Giants moving out. Now you got to figure that
happen, right?
The Giants were hoping for Devontae Smith.
Yes.
That was every mock draft had them going there. I'm sure you did as well.
So maybe the Cowboys wanted the Eagles to have Devontae Smith rather than the Giants to have Devontae Smith. Think about that for a second. They actually had impact into that.
So two trades happening back-to-back. Eagles trade up for a wide receiver, and the Bears trade up for a quarterback. We want to take you back out to Cleveland, site of the draft that we're watching it unfold on NFL Network. We have Ryan Wilson and Bryant McFadden. Ryan, I know you had the Patriots trading up for Justin Fields at times. I didn't see the Bears trading up to get them. I just didn't think it was actually going to happen. It did. What do you think?
Well, first of all, I'm happy for you, Chris, because this means you're not rolling with Andy Dalton for much longer. No disrespect to Andy Dalton. But I think Pete's exactly right. They needed a quarterback desperately. We know that Ryan Pace and Matt Nagy are also up against it in terms of making something happen after the Mitch Trubisky thing didn't work out. It makes a ton of sense. Did they pay too much? Probably. But at the end of the day, if Justin Fields is who they hope he is, it won't matter. That's at the end of the day, that's all that the concern is, that they have a franchise quarterback who can go into Chicago, play in cold weather, which he did at Ohio State, cut the ball through the air with that strong arm, and continue to play like he did and progress like he did. And I'll just say this, and Pete sort of touched on it. We've been down on the media in general. It's been sort of Mac Jones versus Justin Fields. I love both players. I had Justin Fields going 8 in my final mock draft, so this makes sense where he lands. And I think if he had come out next year and stayed for an extra year at Ohio State, he is basically Trevor Lawrence. We're having zero concerns about him. He only played a year and a half at Ohio State. Last year was stop and start with the Big Ten, and he's going to be a great player. I just think the fit, we'll see if it works, because he may be forced into the field sooner rather than later because of the situation with the GM and the head coach. But the Bears needed a quarterback, and they got one.
B-Mac, what do you think of this move? I mean, if you're on the Bears defense, which has really gotten no help from the offense the last couple of years, Fields might not jump in as the week 1 starter, but does this give you a little bit of hope?
No doubt. No doubt. When you look at the Chicago Bears in the quarterback position, I feel like that was the biggest need for them coming into tonight's draft. But oddly, where they were slated to select that, we all felt like all the top quarterbacks will potentially be gone by the time they make their first round selection. But we saw some droppage when you look at some of the quarterbacks, and then right outside the top 10, the guy that they love, that was high on their board, in Justin Fields, was still available. And I agree with Pete Prisco. You got to go ahead and put all your chips in the middle of the table, because if it doesn't work out this year, that front office, that staff, they will be gone. So who cares about next year? All that matters for the Chicago Bears is trying to get a quarterback. They did so tonight, and eventually we will see Justin Fields in the uniform, because when you make this type of investment, knowing the pressure that you're under, that staff I'm talking about, You got to go out and showcase the high investment you just paid out to go get. So I wouldn't be surprised, and Ryan talked about it here off the record, that we could see Justin Fields in the starting lineup maybe week 2 or week 3 that fast, because now is the time to be able to show the organization and fan base that we finally have a quarterback, because they haven't found that answer since they broke ties with Jay Cutler some years ago.
Bryant, Ryan, hang tight. We're going to be checking back in with you throughout the night in Cleveland. We want to take it to our quarterback room now as we react to the Bears' blockbuster trade. I don't know where Danny had Justin Fields ranked, but Brady, you were saying he's number 2 behind Trevor Lawrence in this draft.
Yeah, the unfortunate part is I don't know how good of a fit this really is for any of the quarterbacks at this spot with Chicago. Reason being is this. If you go back to Mitchell Trubisky's rookie year, John Fox was the coach that ended up drafting him. Still didn't save his job, right? They were reluctant to play him. They did towards the end of the season. Were very conservative with him. They still got fired when it was all said and done. Then comes in Matt Nagy. They have that wonderful season the next year. It looks like everything's headed on the right path. We don't see the development from Trubisky. There's really no development from the offense. And this has been an ongoing theme for the Chicago Bears organization for quite some time, is they have a hard time with consistency or even developing a quarterback position. So unfortunately for Fields, look, Dalton might start the season, then Fields goes in, but it's not going to save Matt Nagy or Ryan Pace for that matter. There could be some big changes coming if they don't win enough football games. And I think that's the tough position. And look, Allen Robinson will be there this year. He's a good wide receiver. Probably not, the following year. I don't foresee them getting a long-term deal done. So, we talked before the show, best situations to enter into. Trey Lance entered the best one. Trevor Lawrence in Jacksonville, surprisingly, I think we call that the second best one. Zach Wilson probably entered the worst one. Fields is the second worst when you look at the Bears situation, because the one thing that you don't want to have to deal with as a quarterback in the NFL is, not having stability and then having consistency. I don't foresee him having that in Chicago if they don't have a big season next year.
Yeah, I think that's a concern too. I'll give you some reason for hope, though. See if you can buy into this. See if I can sell you, because that was my initial hunch too. Matt Nagy, creative play caller. I think
Is he,
about
though?
some of the
He
games.
gave it up last year.
Think of some of the games though.
He
when
gave
Mitchell
it up. It's now it's
Trubisky-
Helfrich.
But think
or,
about
excuse me, not Helfrich. Bill Lazor.
Think about some of the games where Mitchell Trubisky played better. Do you remember him running a little bit more, a little more QB run,
Sure.
RPO type of stuff? Maybe they try to implement that with Justin Fields, and they can, like we were talking about Kyle Shanahan, look into kind of the new NFL. But man, I don't know if I'm buying that for a year. Like if they can just survive and he could get to year 2 with this staff. But my hunch tells me, like you're talking about, like this is going to be a quarterback who's probably going to get thrown in there in a desperate move from a coach in a front office, trying to salvage their jobs and see if it works. And then if it doesn't, he has to start from square one, and he's learning another system. And it's so much about evaluating quarterbacks is the situations that you are in. And that gives me pause for Justin Fields' career. I hope he can tell. I'm with you. I thought he was the second best quarterback in this class. I thought that we overthought it, overanalyzed it, looked too much into games. And Ryan mentioned it. The Big Ten had it tougher than any other conference because they were shut down, then they were started back up, and they had the strictest protocols. So there were a couple games didn't have offensive linemen, didn't have Chris Olave. Like, he had a lot to deal with. He's going to have a lot to deal with in Chicago, too.
This is what I hate about this, too, is going in, we're already saying, well, it's going to be Andy Dalton, and then it will be Justin Fields, right?
Right.
The difficulty with that is like, if you're going to take him, prepare him. Give him every rep. Give him every opportunity. We know that's going to be the case with Trevor Lawrence, Zach Wilson. We think that might be the case with Trey Lance. We don't know what's going to happen in San Francisco. But when you do this, you're preparing 2 guys to be the guy, and then no one really is fully prepared for it. And so I think that's a tough situation to be in. And I know Justin Herbert was in that spot last year. Then he got thrusted in. Justin Herbert started for 4 years at Oregon. You look at Justin Fields, he started a year and change at Ohio State. He still needs to play more. I think that's the difficult position that he's going to be in if he has to play. He doesn't have as much experience.
And to that point, guys, I want to bring in Steve Wiltfong, who's the director of recruiting for 24/7 Sports. I mean, a guy like Justin Fields, Steve, I mean, we see him at our level as when he enters college. And we see him play for 1 year, maybe a little bit more. We don't see him that much. You've seen a lot more from him going back to his high school days. What can you tell us about Justin Fields as a teenager?
Well, Justin Fields was actually a late arriver to us on the high school scene, too. Trevor Lawrence comes in as a freshman and leads his team to the state semifinals. And and debuts as our #1 player overall, where Justin Fields had to wait till he was a junior, played behind a kid named Lorenzo Nunez, who ended up playing at South Carolina in a shotgun wing T offense. And when they got Justin Fields under center, they quickly transitioned that into a more of a spread passing attack. And when teams and people like myself caught wind of him, his talent just jumped out right away. The ability to throw the football, the size, 6'3", 226 pounds. He checked in at a camp in high school going into his senior year and laid down a 4.5 40-yard dash on the laser. So he's always been incredibly athletic, always had terrific arm talent, and had to wait his turn there. But in Penn State, North Carolina were some of the schools that got in on him early. And he was an early commit to the Nittany Lions. And when he committed to Penn State, they had the #1 recruiting class in the country at that time. And man, how things could maybe be a little different in Happy Valley with 3 11-win seasons under Coach Franklin, knocking on the door of the college football playoff. Maybe they punch through with a guy like Justin Fields under center.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.